to order.
Good evening, everyone. I will call the City Council meeting to order as we are here for a Port and City Council concurrent meeting. I think officially we have to establish who is here, so are we doing a roll call to officially establish that? Or not? Yeah, she said.
All right, Mark, do you want to call the roll for the Port Authority?
Erickson,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Lunds,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Santana, Nelson, Bussey,
Here. And could you do the same for the City Council, just so we have it?
Bussey,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Mua,
Here.
Rivas, Carter.
Here.
Delisandra, no.
Well, very good. We've got a quorum on both the City Council and the Port Authority. This is a study session, so it's not, we don't need beyond a quorum for votes or anything along those lines. So, and our one and only item tonight is item 3.1. This is to consider Mall of America Waterpark private financing. And why don't we turn it over to Holly and Kevin and anybody else who's going to move to the podium. It's,
Good evening, Council and Commissioners. Is the mic all right? Okay. Good evening. My name is Holly Masick. I am the Port Authority Administrator for the City of Bloomington, and I'm here with my colleague Kevin Knase, the Assistant Port Authority Administrator.
Good evening.
And I just wanted to acknowledge a few people that are in the room with us today. We're going to be doing a presentation to remind you all where we've been with this project, with the Waterpark for Mall of America. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have the opportunity for questions. So we have a number of guests with us. From Mall of America, we have Kurt Hagan, Senior VP of Development, and Martin Walrath, Executive Vice President from Corporate Finance. And then online, we will have Lori Economy Scholler from the City of Bloomington, our CFO, and Holly Houston, the Vice President of Finance from St. Paul Port Authority, who can talk to us about CPACE loans. We also have in the room with us Gina Fiorini, who is our new Port Counsel from QTAC Rock. If you haven't met her, you want to wave. Great. And then Shane Redlang, our Municipal Advisor from Ellers, as well as Julie Long, our City Engineer from the City of Bloomington for any public improvements questions, and Melissa Manderscheid, our City Attorney from the City of Bloomington. We also have Kathy Hadeen, our Deputy City Manager, and Kim Bergeron, our Community Development Director. So I just wanted to name some of those names for context later on for questions that you may have. All right. And we need our screen, so we're having just a few technical difficulties, but as we get started, just want to ground you in where we are today. Again, we're here to talk about a water park project for the Mall of America. This has been in discussion in earnest since about 2018 here in the City of Bloomington, but a water park has always been a part of the potential plans for Mall of America. They have a water park in Edmonton that is part of their mall project there, as well as one in New Jersey. Thank you. And so part of what the mall is hoping to do is continue to diversify their offerings, keep the mall fresh and interesting, and to move from really leaning a lot on brick and mortar retail to having more of a mixed ratio of retail and experiences. Next slide, please.
And we're still getting the projector up.
Oh, dear.
There we go.
He said it will work now.
All right, wonderful. All right, so our agenda for this evening is quick summary and recap of the project, some key milestones that bring us to where we are today, a review of our term sheet that we approved in 2024. We'll discuss the project financing, both the public financing that the Port and Council had previously agreed to, as well as the private financing that Mall of America has secured. We will allow the Mall of America some time to present to you the project and its importance. And then we'll talk about project impact to the community and our economic impact, as well as some risks of the project and potential next steps. So I mentioned some of the background, that this has been in the works since 2018. Another significant milestone happened in 2021 when the state legislature allowed the city to designate some of its tax increment financing as spending plan TIF, meaning it could be invested directly into a project rather than spent on public improvements, which is what is typical. That was meant to be a COVID-19 economic relief measure, and that is the financing that we will be using, the majority of the financing that we'll be using on the public side for the project. The project also changed from some of the earlier iterations, which were a little bit larger. We now are looking at a project that is 220,000 square feet for the building envelope, and then 144,000 square feet within the pool hall. It will have one wave pool and a lazy river, as well as 30 water features and slides. It's approximately the same amount of features that were always included, other than going from two wave pools to one. Project cost at this point is expected to be $432 million. So a few of the milestones along the way. We did approve the term sheet at an April 2024 meeting, and the term sheet outlined the terms for the future redevelopment agreement, public subsidy and equity requirements, and steps required to unlock $6.5 million of pursuit spending for design, entitlements, and so on. And since that time, 555 has been pursuing their private financing, and city staff have been working with consultants to finalize a redevelopment agreement with 555. April 2024 is when you approved that term sheet. You had the opportunity to review the term sheet again. April 2025, 555 was able to execute a CPACE term sheet, so we'll talk about that particular form of financing in a moment. And then in June of 2025, we got a legislative extension to the spending plan TIF, which originally expired at the end of this year. And we now have up until the end of 2027 to utilize that money directly into a project. And then in August of 2025, 555 was able to execute a term sheet with Infinite Global, and we will talk a little bit more about that as well as we go on. Next slide, please. Okay. From this point on, we are having our meeting tonight, which is our study session, and then we're planning to meet again on September 30th for another concurrent meeting. At that meeting, we are likely to consider 4 actions, but they do not all need to happen on September 30th if we need more time. One is redevelopment agreement approval. We do not have the redevelopment agreement finalized for you today. That would be displayed to you before our next meeting where we ask you to vote on it. The release of $6.5 million in pursuit spending dollars. That was part of the original agreements that we negotiated back in April of last year. Approving an amendment to extend our spending plan TIF deadline. That is, the legislature already approved that we can move this out 2 more years. We just need to approve that here in the city of Bloomington. And then approving up to $1 million of regular TIF for public improvement design work, essentially our pursuit costs for the parking ramp. The anticipated future timeline for this project is late 2025 to early 2026. We'll see due diligence and permitting for the new water park design here at the city. We will consider issuing TIF revenue bonds for a portion of the public improvement costs. And then in spring 2026, we are hoping to see closing and construction starting. And then 2029 completion and opening. Of course, that is all subject to changes as time goes on. Next slide. Could you get the next slide, Marit?
There we go.
Okay.
Good evening. As Holly shared, my name is Kevin Canase. I'm the Assistant Port Authority Administrator here, and I'm going to introduce the previous water park term sheet that was approved in April of 2024, and then talk about our public financing as well as the private financing term sheets for the water park project. So there's a lot of detail on this slide, so I'm going to go through it kind of at a high level. In general, this term sheet will still stand based on what we're negotiating for the final redevelopment agreement that will come forward at a future meeting. However, the first item on here, so that construction cost, as Holly shared, has increased from that $373 million amount. And then as part of this project, the port would be contributing $160 million of tax increment financing split between spending plan TIF, that's the $85 million, and up to $75 million of regular TIF, so that's TIF that's generated by the mall. The mall would own the land, and there's some specifications at the value of that appraised value of the land, as well as the city having access to financial records pursuant to our cash flow capture agreement, which we will detail in future slides. The term sheet also had specifications related to the fees that the mall would collect as part of the development of the project, so that's the developer fee as well as the fee for the public improvements, so developer fee for the water park and public improvements itself, and then management fee for operations. And so that management fee is a base 3.5%, and then there are some performance incentives that exist to allow for 555 or the mall to increase that to 5%. That is another change that's proposed as part of this term sheet. So as of the previous approval, that was subordinated based on some guarantees that the mall is bringing forward as part of this proposal. The city staff are recommending that we do allow for that to no longer be subordinated. And then this last detail here on this slide is about the cash flow capture, which we'll go into a lot more detail about that. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. And while we're doing that, in addition to the cash flow capture, what you're going to see on the next slide is also going to talk about the equity requirements. So there are equity requirements at the end of the project. So this is a deferred equity model where 555 would have to bring equity in at the end of the project to end the cash flow recapture. Please bear with us. Oh, there we go. Additionally, it also outlines some requirements related to pursuit costs. So as you're aware, this has been a lengthy project, and so there's a number of pursuit costs. And the term sheet specified how some of those costs would be paid from the various capture funds that exist. So a portion from the MOA project fund, and then a portion from the port project fund, which will be detailed further in subsequent slides. And then it also outlined keeping police staffing levels at current levels through 2045. And am I clicking or are you clicking? Thank you. And for that MOA project fund, so that's funds that would be held in a third-party account that is not controlled by the city, but that does require approval of the port and the mall for projects within Bloomington. And so that's item 13. And then in the 24 approval, the Sustainability Commission had a number of recommendations, and those were incorporated here, a portion thereof into the sustainable design requirements. Probably the most important one of that is that the developer, so 555, has committed to at least $5 million worth of sustainable design improvements within the property. And then finally, this is a non-binding term sheet. So as you have seen, there's some proposed changes in the sheet. The next slide, please. So this is a sources and uses table. So this is showing you the project costs and the uses of funds in order to fund those costs. So looking at this table, this is a $357 million water park project with an additional $75 million of public improvements. The city would be bringing $85 million of spending plan TIF to the project that would be dispersed and available at the start of the project, and then parking and public improvements would be up to $75 million, and a portion of that would be a TIF cash that's in the city's accounts, and then there would have to be a future decision about how many bonds or how much in bonds to issue to fund the remainder of that based on design work that would be completed to finalize those costs. Oh, I think we skipped a slide there. There we go. So as I detailed, the 160 million is the city's contribution. So this is really equity from the city being put into the project, at least the 85 million. And spending plan TIF is considered the equity. And that is the special legislation that Ms. Masick framed that allows for the city to make an equity contribution into the project. So the city has approved that amount per the term sheet in the prior approval, and then the 75 million, like I framed, would be a combination of the cash that's the city has in TIF, as well as revenue bonds that would be issued in a future meeting of the city bodies. And then finally, this financing has a cash flow provision that we'll frame here in just a minute. Oh, is it back to me? Okay, perfect. And before we get to that cash flow capture, we're going to talk a little bit about the private financing. So there are two term sheets that 555 has executed for this project. The first is with Infinite Global Real Estate Partners and their affiliates. So this is a private loan for approximately $120 million. It is a construction loan with a 48-month term, and it has an interest rate at 14.27%. That's kind of an estimated rate, so it's variable based on market conditions. And then one thing we wanted to point out as part of this provision is a new term to this is that there is a potential sale leaseback. And in this situation, the lender would have the opportunity at a certain amount of revenue or cash flow that the project is producing to purchase the real estate assets. And then 555 would retain the business entity of the water park and lease the real estate back at a specified payment amount. And then the second of two term sheets, and this is in first lien position because this is assessed via property tax assessments, is a C-PACE loan. And this is approximately $133 million at a 7.43% estimated interest rate. So we're looking at a blended rate about 10%. And then the St. Paul Port Authority is the statewide administrator for this program. And this is upfront financing that is repaid via the property tax assessments. And an additional item that is before you today for consideration is that as part of these term sheets, the lender has had 555 provide guarantees, and these really come in three different forms. So the first is a lender-controlled securities account. This is dollars or liquid assets that are in that account that they can pull upon if the project does not perform, and that's really marketable securities and the developer fee that would be paid upon closing. And then there's $22.5 million of principal recourse, and in effect, this is second mortgages against property. It could be property in Bloomington. It could be property that 555 owns in other locations as well. And we're still in discussions about what that would look like and the documentation to support that. And then the Gramazing family is also providing interest, carry, and completion guarantees for the project. And I don't know if those have a specified value. I think they're technically unlimited. And Mr. Hagan, who's here, could speak to that further. And then as part of providing this financing and the term sheet, the 555 and the city negotiated a recapture provision where if cash flow allows, funds would flow into two accounts. And this would be based on cash flow that the project is producing. And so 60% of that would fall into the Mall of America Development Fund. And as I shared earlier, that is a third-party account that is in escrow that requires approval of both 555 and the city for MOA development projects within Bloomington. And then the Port Project Fund is a 40% split where the city could potentially earn a minimum of 40 up to a maximum of 60 million. And that would be for use of TIF eligible projects within Bloomington with a focus on certain things like sustainability and climate resilience, as well as affordable housing. And this cash flow recapture would continue until both at least 100 million is collected and then also the private equity is brought into the deal. And this chart here is a depiction of basically how that would function. So the Mall or the water park earns revenue, pays their expenses, and then their debt service payments. And then that becomes cash flow that is then profits that is distributed into the two accounts. And in order to terminate that cash flow recapture, future private equity would have to be brought into the deal to do so. And so that would require a minimum of $100 million is captured into those two accounts. And then how that private equity functions is it's 30% of the value of the real estate and the business at the time where that equity is brought into the deal. The mall or 555 has the ability to earn half of that as increasing valuations of the property. And so what that really means is they have to bring 15% in cash. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hagan. To the right. There you go.
Fantastic. Well, good evening, Mayor Bussey, President Erickson, council members, and port commissioners. Really appreciate the opportunity to come back tonight, and it's been a long time coming. We're not quite there yet, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I believe, and I hope that's not God. I hope that's this water park project that we can get this completed. So I appreciate, first I want to thank staff and for all the time they've spent with us over this last year and a half since we did the term sheet with the city, and we kind of defined the public funding agreements. We've gone to the markets to try to align with those public agreements. We've brought numerous ideas to staff and spent a lot of time with them, weekly calls with them, vetting these ideas, and I think we landed on one that actually aligns with the city term sheet and with our goals and objectives. And so I'm really excited to be here tonight and give you kind of the overview of it. Much of this staff has already outlined in the staff report. A lot of it you've seen in previous meetings, but I think it's important to kind of reiterate again some of the key public benefits, not only for your benefit, but for those that might be online that are wondering, why is Bloomington involved in this water park project? And so I want to outline a few of those. The first, why a water park? We talked about this, I think, at the last meeting that I was here. What's the big deal about a water park? And one of the biggest deals about the water park is its ability to drive tourism, traffic and tourism. Approximately 700,000 guests a year, of which approximately 40% are overnight guests. That'll generate about 90,000 hotel rooms a year. So there is no other project in Minnesota other than Mall of America and our amusement park that can drive that kind of traffic. And why that's good for Bloomington, obviously, the lodging taxes that creates and the 7% Bloomington lodging tax, but also we know from our experience of the on-site hotels that we have now, those hotel guests per night spend about $400, not in the water park or not in our amusement park, but in the mall, in the city, renting cars, hotel rooms, food. They're very productive guests that we want to attract to not only our project, but to Bloomington. Second reason really is the tax generation. It spins off of the tourism piece a lot. Over $3 million a year in new local taxes, almost $3.5 million a year in new local taxes. You'll see in staff report, it talks about over $2 million a year in city taxes, right? There's a difference between city taxes and local taxes because in the city taxes, you're not counting the portion of the lodging taxes that go to the port. You're not counting the portion of the lodging taxes that go to Bloomington Travel and Tourism. You're also not counting local option sales tax that staff is choosing to keep that out of the total because there's a termination on that at some point when those projects are paid off. But if you include local option sales tax and all of the lodging taxes, in year 5, it's going to be about $3.5 million a year in new local taxes, and about $5 million a year in new state and regional taxes, right? This is why the state has been so supportive of our project. They understand what the tourism, what the taxes do, not only for Bloomington, not only for the region, but also for the state of Minnesota. Strengthening Mall's future. We've talked about this in several of the meetings, and staff has covered this in the staff report as well. It's really important, not only to Mall of America, obviously, and our owners, but to the city of Bloomington, and I think all of you understand that. The mall in and of itself typically generates about 11 or 12% of the total general fund dollars each year to Bloomington. Hospitality community generates about the same. So between Mall of America and the hospitality community, that's roughly 20 to 24% of your tax revenues each year, depending on the year. So it's important for us, and I think as Holly mentioned, we really need to diversify our mix. We've talked about that. Our goal is to get closer to a 50-50 mix of entertainment and retail. Today we're closer to 70-30, with after the Waterpark will be about 65-35. But when the other projects are added on that we envision for phase 2, it'll eventually get us closer to the 50-50 mix. Catalyst for future development. This was important to me. I'm the development guy, right? So as you heard, the first $100 million at minimum will be captured from Waterpark profits and used to be reinvested in Bloomington. The 60-40 split. The projects that you see, the athletic facility, the amateur sports complex, exhibit hall, the conference space, mixed-use space, we've been talking about those about as long as we've been talking about the Waterpark, right? But we've never had a funding source to move them forward. This is part of the reason why we created this mechanism to kind of recycle those TIF dollars back and reinvest them in the project, and that's what this is intended to do. The public funding source, again, this is one that many in the public don't understand, right? Where do these dollars come from? They come from our property taxes, Mall of America's property taxes. That is the only public funding source. It's tax increment financing. What is very unique about the tax increment financing, and unique to Bloomington, it's never been done before, is the state, typically tax increment financing, when a city has a TIF district, it captures the local portion of the property taxes that would otherwise go locally. So a property tax bill generally gets split three ways. We mail our property taxes to the county. Roughly a third goes to the state, a third goes to the county. In this case, the fiscal disparities pool, and a third goes to the city. Typically, in all other cases, a TIF project is Bloomington, you want to build something in Bloomington, and it's a TIF district, you can capture the portion that would otherwise go to Bloomington to reinvest in Bloomington. In this case, it's capturing the regional dollars for a local project that has regional and statewide benefits. So there is no Bloomington tax dollars involved in this, at risk in this project. All the benefits, why, I've talked about this before, why is this unprecedented opportunity? It's because we've got unprecedented state tools that were provided to us by the state of Minnesota. As I said, all public benefits come at no cost or risk to the city of Bloomington, no financial risk, that is. The unique tools really go back to, the state has been very supportive of trying to advance our phase 2 development. Started with the lowering of Lindau Lane, providing public funding for that, giving us regional TIF, as I just mentioned, has never been done for a private project before. Then providing special purpose TIF, which also is, that has been done before, at least one other occasion, as an economic development tool, but very unique to be able to use that directly in a project like the Waterpark, and then providing, again, a TIF extension. The state really wants to see us get this project done, and they've given us everything we need, I believe, to accomplish just that. So what's changed, I think Kevin covered some of this from the term sheet the public funding term sheet that we agreed to a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, we really thought interest rates would come down and credit markets would get better. They haven't. Actually, interest rates have actually gone up, and credit markets are even tighter than they were when we signed this agreement, or did the public funding agreement a year and a half ago. What we've had to do in order to advance this project is to credit enhance the debt. 555 seeing and knowing the importance of this project to Mall of America and to 555, has agreed to provide significant loan guarantees to this project, and that was necessary to get this financing in place. So that's new. When we were talking about this project a year and a half ago, this was a non-recourse loan, the only recourse being to the project itself. There's now significant guarantees in place to protect those lenders, which has allowed for us to get the term sheets that we now have. The regional public investment carries much less risk now than it did a year and a half ago because of this, $100 million plus guarantees that are sitting in front of the public investment. Who carries the risk? Again, we've kind of talked about this. The risk is really borne by 555 and the private lenders, right? The first loss position is those guarantees. If there's a problem, we're in position one to backstop that problem. Secondly, we're also providing, the land that's underneath this water park. It's contributed to the project that is at risk. Third, it's really the lenders, right? They bear the repayment risk. If this thing can't produce enough revenue to repay the debt, they're going to foreclose, take the project back, recapitalize it. New owner comes in, operates a water park. Much like we have seen in other projects in this community, it will be a water park. From the public side, again, there's no Bloomington taxpayer exposure, but the city or the state and the region really get what they're bargained for, even if this project is foreclosed upon and a new ownership group comes in, right? They wanted the construction jobs, those happen. They wanted the regional taxes and tourism, that still happens. The city, local taxes, those still happen. It's just under a different ownership group. The outcome scenarios, it's basically we're either moving forward or we're not. If we move forward, all of the benefits that we've talked about in the past, the 700,000 plus annual guests, the millions in new local taxes, the reinvestment in Bloomington, and the mall sustainability are all there in front of us. If we don't, or if the city chooses not to move forward, or the port, obviously there'll be additional financing delays while we try to fix whatever that problem might be and seek different financing solutions. The jobs and the economic development that the state is seeking by providing these tools obviously wouldn't happen if we don't move forward, and I think we would have no choice but to go back to the state and look for additional assistance to figure out, what other tools might we need to advance this project. So in summary, the Bloomington taxpayers, one last time, have nothing to lose and everything to gain. There's no financial risk to Bloomington or its residents. And the real risk, I believe, is really failing to act on this opportunity that's been gifted to us, if you will, by the state and the region to create this project and the local benefits that it would create. The project is a very transformative economic and tourism driver for not only the mall, but also for Bloomington and the region, which is why the regional source is being used for the public funding. And lastly, the loan structure, as Kevin mentioned, aligns with the terms that we outlined, kind of the requirements for the public funding, and I would argue is actually better. It's a better deal for the public than what we had envisioned a year and a half ago because of the loan guarantees that are now in place to offer further protection. And with that, you told me to keep it quick. I will keep it quick, and we'll stand for questions. Oh.
We have just a few more slides, so thank you for your patience. And thank you, Mr. Hagan, for your presentation. So we agree there are many benefits to this project. It's a recreational amenity to the city and the Twin Cities region, and the mall also draws a number of national and international visitors as well. So we want to continue to keep the mall healthy and continue to draw new audiences to the mall. This adds resiliency to South Loop and MOA. We want to keep this amenity, the mall, and the surrounding tourism infrastructure fresh. The tax revenue from Mall of America and presumably from this water park would defray property tax paid by residents. So MOA is 9.4% of the city's property tax base, and hotels are 6.1% of the city's property tax base. And we know that many hotel stays can be attributed to or associated with Mall of America. This project, as we have proposed it, would include exclusive discount ticket prices for city residents. And the projected water park revenue captures additional potential funding stream for the city, which is exciting to us as staff. It could be used for sustainability and affordable housing projects. We can also look to you at Port and Council for guidance on how you would like that funding to be spent. And then the MOA project fund could serve as gap financing on future development projects. You saw in Kurt's renderings the hope to see perhaps a hotel or other types of development that spins off of this water park. Some of the economic impact that we anticipate seeing includes admissions tax at an additional $1.1 million a year in the first year, liquor tax at an additional $45,000 a year, property taxes at an additional $2.75 million a year. $450,000 of that would go to the city's general fund. New lodging tax estimates at approximately $329,000 a year. And then total estimated additional tax revenue to the city would be $1.8 million. There are risks to this project. There are risks that the project cannot pay its debt. As Kurt stated, 555 would be responsible for the debt payments. That would not be on Bloomington taxpayers. It is very likely to remain a water park due to the value of the asset once it's constructed, but it does mean that water park cash flow could no longer be captured for future projects. There have been a number of market dynamics and uncertainty and continue to be. We don't know what will happen with interest rates. Tariffs continue to befuddle us, and so we don't necessarily know firmly the costs of the project moving forward. There's the timing of future equity. In the deal that we have negotiated with 555, they need to bring equity later on. We don't know exactly what year that will happen in. There's, of course, the city's reputational risk. This is a significant public investment, and you all need to feel confident about it. Sale leaseback, that is a new element of the negotiations that we're looking at. If that occurs, it will introduce a new property owner. Pursuit spending loss, if the project doesn't start construction, we will have lost the $6.5 million that we've advanced to the project. And then we are glad to see 555's guarantees. They do alleviate some of the risk of lower cash flow, but that is still a risk as well. But as Mr. Hagan pointed out, there are risks of not doing the project. You are all aware of them as well. We do not want to see Mall of America's performance decline. They are a significant economic generator for the city and the region, and they believe that a water park is the next step to helping them grow and thrive here. And then there are limitations on this the spending plan TIF that we have. There's a limited amount of time that we can spend what we have through 2027 and invest it directly into a project. And once that expires, we can only use it on public improvements. And the public improvements are likely to be associated with private development. So we really want to take advantage of this opportunity that we have right now. Looking at next steps, as we wrap up our meeting today, we already have on our calendar a meeting for September 30th. I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting there are 4 actions that will take place at that time, including potentially the redevelopment agreement approval if we complete it by that time. That would also be associated with the release of the $6.5 million in pursuit spending dollars. Approving an amendment to extend the spending plan TIF, that is just extending our deadline. And then approving up to $1 million of regular TIF for public improvement design. And then again, we're looking at a late 2025 to early 2026 closing and due diligence period with spring 2026 construction start and anticipated 2029 completion and opening. And with that, I would like to invite Mr. Hagan back up, and we are happy to take your questions.
Well, thank you for that. Council, questions? Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify and confirm with a few things. There were 4 public sources. There's $6.5 million of pursuit costs, $1 million. There's the MOA TIF, and then there's a spending plan TIF. Can you explain where those sources of money come from?
Yes. Would you like to take it?
Mayor, council members, commissioners, Councilmember Nelson. So the sources that you framed, they all come from the TIF that is generated by Mall of America. And the special legislation allowed for a portion of that to be used for special purposes. So that 85 million still comes from that MOA TIF. If we don't use it for that purpose, then it would be returned as regular TIF to the project, is my understanding. And I might defer to our council to confirm that if I'm misspeaking incorrectly. The 6.5 million would be a portion of that spending plan TIF. So as Holly framed, if we were to disperse those funds and the project did move forward or did not move forward, there's a risk that we may need to find another source for those dollars. The reason there being is that there are requirements with the spending plan TIF for construction jobs, among others. And if that project doesn't move forward and we've spent those funds, then we're not meeting those requirements potentially. And then the 1 million that you framed, so that's the regular TIF that would be used for the public improvement. So that's design-related expenditures, pre-development kind of design cost in order to firm up the budget for the public improvements.
Mayor, if I might follow up just quickly, can you clarify, is this the fiscal disparities TIF?
Oh, yes. Councilmember Nelson, so this is the fiscal disparities TIF, at least a portion thereof. And some of the amounts in the account may have been TIF at earlier dates. I don't know the exact numbers there, so I would like to follow up with that question at a later date if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
I've actually just got a couple of comments. And the other thing that I want to do is welcome Martin Rolowath. I think they pulled you out of retirement 2 or 3 times on this project. So it's good to see you here and have you participate. I think as we look at this thing, the numbers are very complex. And so I've had a couple of simple things that I've always had on when we've been talking about this, and that is that really all the money the city is talking about is fenced money. And fenced money just means it can't be used for something else. So we have the money in the accounts, and this is something that it's dedicated for legislative purposes or by legislative intent. And so it has to be used for a project like this. I think the second thing that, again, just reiterating, it's in some of our numbers, but the financial risk to the city, I wouldn't say there's never no risk, but I think the risk is minimal because we have most of the funds on hand for this already, or we know where the fiscal disparities TIF is going to be generating funds in the future. There would be a small financing requirement, which would be revenue bonds, if for the parking ramps. And so again, that's in a situation that if that is done, the taxpayers in Bloomington would not be on the hook for that if something happens. So I think we just have to keep that these kind of simple things in mind as we look at this, because it's so easy to get caught up in all the complexity. I think the other thing that would be great to do is we've had Shane Rudlong, who has been working on this for years, and I'm glad to have the continuity and have him continue, but perhaps Shane has just a couple comments about his experience and where he's at, and if you can elucidate us on anything, Shane. I'm putting you on the spot, but that's what you're paid for.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners, Mayor, Council members. Yeah, so, it's exciting to be back talking about the Waterpark project. I'll make one correction to the presentation in that it was the day after the vote for the Expo, the first go-around in 2017, that this project really started, with Kurt Hagan calling me the next morning after I had severe Expo hangover, wanting to push this forward. And so I'm being flip, of course, but no, it's exciting to see that it could be a reality, and we've all been working on this for a long time. So I'm not sure if that's the commentary that you were looking for, Bob. It is a very complex project. It's the most complex financing that I've been involved in, even in my new role, for sure. So there's a lot to it.
Well, I think it's fair to say, Shane, that, I mean, again, you've been all over all these numbers and have seen all of them, and it's a very complex project, but I think it's something that, as Kurt Hagan was saying, it kind of weaves between all the lines and accomplishes these things that we've been trying to do. And I think, actually, Mayor Bussey, I think you and I were actually involved. I remember sitting in a room at Larkin Hoffman maybe a few years earlier talking about another iteration of this, so at any rate. So, Port Authority, questions, comments? Commissioner Hunt?
I thank you for the information and so forth.
Yeah.
Sorry. And the information, and Shane, for your comments too. I still have an issue, and that's maybe a moot point, but of the lack of the upfront equity. I like hearing about the movement from non-recourse to recourse, but I'm not hearing magic words about, actual dollars, and there's kind of what are the actual guarantees? I'm not hearing cash in there on the part of the individuals, and, I'm hearing marketable securities, that's good, but types and quality and ultimately skin in the game, beyond just, hey, we're going to make it work kind of a thing.
Would MOA like to respond to that?
We're going to have the expert now.
And unfortunately, they haven't brought me back from retirement because I haven't had the opportunity.
Well, I know there was some discussion, Martin, that you were trying to get out. Maybe. All right.
With respect to the guarantees, there's effectively $20 million of cash collateral or liquid collateral that would be readily convertible to cash.
Okay.
So in a sense, that means you can have certificates of deposit or other investment vehicles that are relatively easily converted to cash. So we look at it as $20 million of cash. Now that is actually provided not as the first resort if there's a problem. It's held by the lender as its last resort. So all of our other guarantees actually come ahead of it in terms of seeking claims against us. So we provide a completion guarantee, and we haven't yet negotiated for Kurt to provide that personally as well as through our corporate entities, but Kurt will certainly be dedicating his next few years to assure that we have a project that opens on time, on budget. We're obviously very comfortable with the GMP contract we'll have from Ryan. Good regional people really know their business, but nevertheless, so well said, in today's world, there's much more uncertainty about the next 6 months, the next year, et cetera. And so we have provided that completion guarantee. Any cost overruns that or cost delays that occur in the project that lead to cash requirements are, we foot that bill. In addition to that, even post opening the project, there could be, through the ramp up of the performance of the project, although we expect it to actually ramp up given that it's opening at Mall of America, which is already #1 destination for retail tourism in the United States, 25 to 30 million visitors, et cetera. With that existing maturity of the project, we think the ramp up will be relatively quick. And we've provided for that with interest reserves, that kind of natural protection in the loan. But nevertheless, any shortfalls would be, again, on the guarantor to top up whatever the cash flow deficiency was to ensure that the lenders are getting their full interest payments during that ramp-up period of time. In addition to those two, we provide a $22.5 million principal repayment guarantee so that we get the project open with whatever costs that might have been incurred in completion guarantees. We get the project cash flowing with whatever additional costs that are incurred under the guarantee for the interest carry ramp-up period of time. Now it's time to refinance the project. We provide a $22.5 million principal guarantee, plus they're still holding the $20 million of cash or cash-like security. So in effect, in the repayment process, there's a $42.5 million cushion for the lender's repayment before they would be at risk in the process. So the exposure falls largely on us in each of those scenarios. We're obviously experienced real estate developers. We're going to be putting all of our attention to the detail to make sure that we limit that exposure in every step of the way, but it's still a substantial exposure and commitment from the Gramesian 555 organization to ensure that this project gets built.
And I thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't having cross-collateral pledges, and what we're getting is actually, and that doesn't have to be discussed now, but to make sure staff and is well aware of that and looking at the true financial picture. Again, not necessarily tonight, but the concern that, and yes, we would anticipate everything would be honored, and you have the wherewithal to do that, but just to actually review the information to see and confirm that.
Thank you.
Well, Martin, you can see why we really appreciate having Cynthia on the board, because she knows how to work out these banking questions probably better than most of us. So, Commissioner Luntz?
Hi, thanks, Robert. I think I have one question, but the answer may lead to a second one. And it's a question I got from my son when he was 7 years old, and it takes a bit of a lead in. But, and I ask it quite often. He was getting his tonsils out at Children's Hospital on a gurney, about ready to go into surgery. The ENT doctor came in, told him, "You're going to go to sleep. We're going to put a mask on your face with a flavor on it, bubble gum or orange. And you're going to come sleep, and we're going to take your tonsils out." He said, "Do you have any questions?" At 7 years old, he looked the ENT doctor right in the eye, and he said, "Have you ever done this before?" And so my question relates to the personal guarantee. Have the Gramesians ever had to personally guarantee to this extent one of their developments to get it built and accomplished? And then I'll let it sit at that.
It's not common, but there's a phrase in lending circles about having a warm body guarantee. That's beyond a corporate entity, of which we are providing corporate entity with the assets within them and the liquidity within them as guarantors. So the warm body gets to the persons at hand, particularly when you're a private institution. So the answer is yes, there have been personal guarantees provided. They're often done in the form of, again, I hate to use nomenclature, but bad boy, carve-out guarantees, assurances of individuals that no bad acts can occur, which would be done to deceive or to work around the obligations they have. By having the individuals who are the people that are actually running the organization, you have a higher comfort that they will ensure that there is nothing that could put the project at risk other than the risks of the development nature itself.
Also, being an old lender in a former life, it has been done before in the form of mortgage guarantees for other developments. I guess I just want to be clear about that.
It has been done before, yeah.
Other questions? I just wanted to make one more comment. This was on the subordination and of the management fees, and I was probably one of the drivers on that in many of the negotiations. And the reason for that is we were just trying to, you have to look at the downside as well as the upside. And so what I've always felt is important to do is to give the project some additional breathing room in effect. And that's where those fees came in. So we've really had a substitution, and probably the $20 or $30 million would be roughly equivalent to the management fees, I think, if they were subordinated.
We would gladly trade the lenders. Subordinated management fees.
Councilmember Mua.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a comment here. I think the last time you were in front of us, my biggest concern was that 555 thought this was a good idea. We might think it's a good idea, but does the market really think it's a good idea? So for me, hearing that you have found a partner who is willing to do the background research to ensure that this is a good project that we've all thought makes a lot of sense to me. And so thank you for doing that work. I know the market is up and down. No one knows what's going on, but the fact that people are still looking for opportunities to invest in projects like this, to me, means that this can be a viable project. And having them do that background research to confirm everything we've done gives me a lot more confidence in that. The only number that scares me is that 14.26% interest rate. We don't know where it's going to go. The Fed is saying they might drop rates here, but who knows? And I know you can always refinance and things like that, but that's the only number that scares me a little bit. Maybe it's because I don't have that experience. My only experience is with a mortgage, and if I had a mortgage of 14% I'd be really scared. So appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Some of us in the 80s may remember that there were mortgages in the teens, but you're right. If I identified one thing that scares us or gives us reason to pause, it is that. But what the reason for that is we have a bifurcated loan structure. The 133 million CPACE loan, which is a super priority position in the loan structure, carries a very attractive, I think, coupon rate. You know, it's flexible in the sense of it fluctuates rather, but it'll be somewhere probably in the 7 to 7.5% range. So that gets averaged out with the higher rate, which is a reflection of the fact that the party lending there is brought in a subordinate position, which always leads to a substantially higher coupon rate there. And it will behoove us to pursue replacement financing to get more of that normal permanent financing fixed rate at the earliest opportunity after opening and normalization of performance. So we're highly incentivized to do that refinancing at that time. But your observation, you know, and concern with it, I can't dispute that there is some concern that goes with it.
Thank you for that background. That's really helpful. Thank you.
I've heard one question from a Port Authority member. Just, why don't you, Martin, give your full title and tell how many years you've been with 555? I don't know that we really introduced you. I kind of said we've seen you before.
I started with 555 in 1990. And so I've been involved in all the West Edmonton Mall financings, all of the Mall of America phases from when we were partners to when we took full ownership and then proceeded with financings there. And I've had the pleasure of working on the American Dream Project in New Jersey for the last 10 years, a project which was opening 3 days, it turns out, after the state of New Jersey closed for COVID. So, you know, we've enjoyed the pluses and the minuses that come with this type of development activity. We polled who was here at the time that Mall of America first opened, and there were a number from our team that were there. So we tend to be long-standing employees of the company. But yeah, I've been with 555 a long time, and I focus only in this type of corporate finance work.
Thank you.
Council report, any questions? Last call?
Yes, I have a question.
Councilmember Santana.
In the risk section, is there really no way to offset the risk of if there's a transfer to another owner that the city would no longer be able to recoup any of their TIF funds?
Commissioner Santana and members, I think I may have not stated that exactly perfectly. The transfer to another owner was simply that we will need to understand how to work with another owner. We've been dealing with 555 at this property for a long time. That was from the risks page, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That would apply to both the sale leaseback scenario or the default on the loan?
The default on the loan scenario is a different issue. And yes, at this point, we're still working out the particulars of how that would look if that should occur. So we will get you that answer.
Just one comment on the sale leaseback. That we're dealing with, I think it's a $35 billion market cap public real estate investment trust REIT. They're actually really well qualified for this type of activity. They specialize in experiential entertainment, hospitality, and other areas. And if you look back to the chart of what our phase 2 would look like with youth sports, exhibit hall, possibly a conference or convention center, they actually are active in all of those areas. So from our perspective, their position is start with the water park, of which they actually own a number of water parks with sale leaseback arrangements to them. So this is not their first water park experience, which is very helpful to us that they have that knowledge. But they are a company of, I think they have 28 executives. They're very lean. They have no interest in operating. They partner, in effect, with people such as ourselves, and then they're very passive in terms of the property. They own the real estate, but we own the operations and the profits that are generated above what would be they call it a lease payment. It's effectively like a fixed interest rate that we pay. The good news is you're getting a 50-year fixed rate, but they do have a fee simple interest in the asset. But we will be the developer and the operator, manager of the property, even under the sale leaseback.
It's these guys. Infinite Global.
Unless we have additional questions or comments, I'd like to thank you for the presentation and the information that you provided. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks to our staff as well. Next steps, we will be back together on the 30th to consider this at another concurrent session between these two bodies.
And Holly, I think we were holding the 23rd, but we can take that hold off now.
Oh. President Erickson and members, we will take care of that.
Okay. All right.
Well, as the council has wrapped up our business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn tonight.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Mua, second by Councilmember Carter to adjourn this council section of the meeting. No further discussion on this. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries 5-0.
And I will adjourn the Port Authority.
Very good. Thank you all very much.